So first of all, Daniel, so thanks very much that you took the time for Radio Jack. So it's really an honor, it's a pleasure that you're with us in this show and doing this interview. I also know that you have a lot of stuff going on at the moment, so touring again, etc. So thanks very much for that. It's really a
It is,
pleasure.
it is, it is my pleasure. I mean, I just feel humbled and blessed that people care about my music and want to talk to me at all. So why wouldn't I make time for such people?
Thank you. So, but it's really great actually. So, but maybe as a short wrap up. So, actually, what we are looking at the moment is a man who has, you are aesthetic perfection primarily. So you are 20 years now, sort of like celebrating of aesthetic perfection, right? 7 albums. Well, there is like maybe the eighth, right? With the Roman digits, so 2021. So I assume that's then the 12 singles, but we can probably talk later about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you have numerous singles. Also, one just came out again. So you are the inventor of industrial pop.
I don't know. You know, I always try to be clear. Like, I actually don't know if I came up with that term. I really I uh, a lot of times, like, I'll remember something very clearly if I came up with the title, or I think about 10 or 11 years ago I called myself emo body music because I thought it was a fun play on EBM, right? And so me and my old bandmate David, we made that up. But I don't actually know if I invented industrial pop. And I was speaking with Christian Wesenberg of Rotesan recently, and he has a T-shirt, a Rotesan T-shirt from 2008, and it says post-industrial pop. So I think Christian might have been the inventor of the term industrial pop. So we may never know, but I'm the ambassador. I'll say that I'm like the person trying to spread the good word about industrial pop to the world.
Okay, good. So and you know, in the end, it's also maybe a good rumor. So let's take it like that.
Let's take it like that. Okay.
Okay, so apart from that, you're an American living in Austria, and you are at the moment in Austria, so you're not in LA anymore, right?
That's correct. I moved out here in September of 2019, so really just before the
Hmm.
pandemic hit. And I consider myself quite lucky that I wasn't stuck in my one bedroom apartment in Los Angeles during, all of the lockdowns. I'm living here on the countryside. There's a lot of room and trails. You can go hiking, all this kind of stuff. So I feel quite lucky because I was not so boxed in during the lockdowns.
Yeah, that's very true. Primarily, if it's a one-room apartment, so
Yeah.
yeah, very true. Yeah, apart from that, you're an icon of the Gothic scene.
Really? I'm an icon? Oh my. There's so much pressure. I didn't. Oh, okay. Well, whatever you say, but it makes me feel like I don't know, like I have to be like awesome and perfect all the time. But okay.
Okay. So yeah, but that was just a short wrap-up intro, you know. So let's right go into one of the topics that were was very present, like in 2021. Of course, we want to also later talk about, you know, you touring again. But first of all, you published in 2021 one song per month. So that's just amazing, right? So, and I don't want to ask too much about like the, you know, the circumstances of the pandemic and stuff, but more like, so when you go into something like that, so you plan that, etc. But what is primarily, let's say, how did you manage that? You know, how did you get your inspirations, etc. For, I mean, it's one song per month, right? So
Yeah. Um, it's it's interesting to me that people will ask like, oh, where do you get the inspiration for, new songs or new ideas? Like, for me, inspiration is actually the easiest part. Like, can sit here and come up with 10 ideas for songs in 1 minute. Like that's the ideas are the easy part, but it's taking those ideas and turning them into a like fully realized composition or music video or something like that. That's that for me is where the real work comes in. So the ideas were easy, but it was trying to complete those ideas into something that didn't feel rushed, didn't feel like I was half-assing it, so to speak, just like, okay, let's just get this out the door. It was really important to me that everything that I released last year be as good comparatively to my previous work. So it's living up to that expectation and always trying to meet your own standards, which is the most difficult.
Okay, and primarily, I mean, also when we look through, I mean, it's not only these singles, it's your albums. I mean, there are many like different, genres, mixes. I mean, of course, industrial pop, but it's really that you're taking on many different kinds of inspirations there. So, but you're also doing that all on your own in this room, or?
Basically, yeah. I mean, I learned the value of collaboration just, I think, within the last 4 or 5 years, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I think that working with other people who have different creative ideas, different creative processes can really help bring out new concepts and new ideas that you might not have come across before. So, for example, Gods and Gold, I wrote that song with Mick Kenny, who is sort of a music producer, but also a founding and integral member of the I don't know what kind of metal you would call them. They're almost like Anal Nathrak. I probably haven't even pronounced it correctly, but I wrote that with Mick together in a room, and it wasn't a song that I would have ever come up with, I think, on my own. And We Wake Up, I wrote with Christian Wesenberg. I really do think that collaboration is great, but I do need to be the one steering the ship, right? And I do need to be the one who's always sort of in control, which I'm trying to get better at. I'm trying to let go of, but for the most part, yes, it's me taking these ideas and then finishing them either in this room or back in my studio in LA where I finished Into the Black. But the whole reason really for me constantly trying new sounds and production techniques and songwriting styles, all that kind of stuff, is just because I get bored. I just am so easily bored. And if I even repeat an idea once, I get almost mad at myself, right? Like, come on, you can do better than that. You got to try something completely different. And so maybe this is actually like my biggest weakness as an artist, because I never sort of like, I never commit to a certain sound or style, which, arguably could be the best way to achieve success. But I think for me, artistic expression, finding new ways to sort of articulate all these things that are running through my head at all times, that's really more important to me than success. So yeah, I do think that I get a bit schizophrenic with my ideas, but I don't think I can do it any other way.
Yeah, but what also sprang into my mind when you're just saying these things. So you have one collaboration also, or one that sprang into my mind, into my eyes and ears, with Sebastian Swalan, so also tour guitarist of Lindemann. So how did that come together? Did you meet him when you were on tour with Lindemann, or?
Yeah, Seb was one of my favorite people on that tour with Lindemann, and I don't know. I really got along very well with him, and one night we went out in Minsk and celebrated a little bit too hard, and I I I remember just being so completely almost blackout drunk. This is the thing, is like I don't really party on tour anymore, but this one night in Minsk, for some reason, I just got it into my head that it was going to be a good idea to, drink vodka and stuff that I don't do at all anymore. But I decided I was going to make my way back to my hotel at like 3 a.m. in Minsk from this after party, and he tried to talk me out of it. I barely remember this conversation, but I wake up in my hotel room the next day. I'm still alive. And I go to the airport the next day, and Sebastian's just sort of like, wait, like he just happens to be there. And he's like, oh my God, you survived. I would have never forgiven myself if you had died in Minsk. I can't believe I left you alone. I'm so sorry. And gave me this hug and was like, I'm so glad you're alive. And I don't know, ever since then, I really, really like Sebastian a lot. And when we had the lockdowns, and I needed to produce some songs, he was the first person that came into my mind when I was thinking about guitars, because honestly, he just might be the most brilliant guitarist I have ever met in my whole life. He's just genius. So I'm so honored that he decided to work with me for all those songs last year.
Cool. And actually, I mean, you also wrote that, I think, in the social media. So how the collaboration is. So you primarily put the stuff over to him and said like, okay, do what you want.
So I had like a basic idea in my head, and you can't see it here, but I've got a couple of guitars, and I play them very, very badly, like really bad, but it's enough to sort of give maybe a hint of a direction for people that I work with. And so I was actually very, very embarrassed to send him the guitar parts that I had played, like, hey man, you want to maybe play this, but like better. And he was very kind about it. He was never like making me feel bad about how terrible my guitar work was. But what he sent me back was, of course, just inspired and brilliant. And he has this way of making the guitar parts heavy but also very defined. You hear every note, you hear every sort of pick stroke. It's just, he's just so incredibly gifted when it comes to that. And so when I heard what he had sent me back, I was just, he changed the song entirely, and obviously would have never been what it is without his input.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. That's very true. So and do you plan on further collaborations then?
I would love to. I haven't reached out to him just yet, but I am working on a lot of new material, and a lot of it I would love to have his hands on. So fingers crossed. If you're watching,
okay.
if you're listening,
Don't do that.
Seb, please work with me again. I promise I'll play better guitar parts, better demos. I swear.
Perfect. So how will you do that live then? Will you perform the song live?
Well, I've been playing a lot of the songs that we did last year. So we're playing SEX now. It's part of our repertoire. And the musicians that I have with me on stage are also incredibly gifted, and I'm humbled to work with them. They're doing a fantastic job with everything, with the guitar parts, with the key parts, with the drums. Yeah, they are fantastic.
Very good. So how does touring feel again after such a long time?
It's interesting because I sort of realized during the lockdowns that I'm much more of a studio person than I am a live performance person. There's a lot of people out there that feel at home on the stage, right? Like that's sort of what feeds their soul. And when I saw what a lot of my colleagues were going through during these last couple of years, of course, I had a lot of sympathy for them, but I was surprised at how much I didn't feel that way, right? Like I wasn't
Really?
like, oh my God, I need to get back on stage. Oh my God. I was just like, oh, well, okay. I mean, I guess I can't play, but I can be in here all day long and I can make songs and I can, I can call Sebastian on Skype and we can talk about how to put this song together. It's like for me, the 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 end goal is to is to is to write new music or to be able to produce music. That is essentially why I do everything else. Why I tour, why I do interviews and things like that. It's not like I don't like those things, but I feel like all of those actions feed into my ability to write music, which is the thing that if I can't do it even for a day, I get I get unhappy. My brain starts flooding. My subconscious brain floods my conscious brain with ideas, and it's like try this, try that, do this. And if I can't do it, I feel frustrated and lost and angry and all those kinds of things. And I think that a lot of my colleagues, they get that release from being on stage. So um, it is more of an adjustment for me trying to remember how to be a performer as well as a creator. But I feel like every show it's like riding a bike, right? And every
Mhm.
show gets a little better, gets a little better, gets a little bit more fun, and the more sort of uh, automatic it becomes, the more fun you're allowed to have, the more room you have to play with it. So I think um, by the end of the summer, I'll probably be really, really excited about it and say it feels like I never stopped. But right now, it's still kind of like, oh, do this? How do? Yeah, okay, yeah. I think it's like balancing, I guess, which is a weird way of describing it,
Right.
but that's the only way that it comes into my brain right now. It's like balancing.
But how do you prep then so for for a tour or for in general? I mean, I know that you went running, etc. So probably
Yeah.
getting more fit in shape for that.
There's no there's nothing that can prep you for the reality of being on
Hmm.
stage, right? Like, so, you can if you're an athlete, you can practice all day long, you can train all day long, but that's all incredibly different than the act of really playing the game against, other people. And um, I do everything I can to prepare, right? So I try to work out every single day. I try to very limit my alcohol consumption because it's so bad for your
Cheers.
voice, right? Yeah, cheers. Um, so uh, I try to do everything I can to take care of my voice. I practice my songs every single day. I do 1 or 2 hours of singing every single day. Um, and and I do everything in my power to make sure that I am prepped for the stage. But then you get on stage and you're just like, this is completely different. Oh my God, what do I do? Uh, so you really have to be on stage you have to be on tour to really sort of get back into what it is to tour, I guess. Um, but yeah, I think what I'm doing and what artists should be doing is treating touring sort of like being an athlete who's playing a game. So you do all the training that you can at home, but you know, uh, you're never really prepared for the actual game until you're in it.
Very true. And in the end, everything can happen.
Yeah, and
And
everything that can
always
go
something
wrong,
happens that you don't expect.
always, always, and there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to accept and embrace the chaos, right?
Exactly. So, but actually, so when thinking about tour life, so how does that look for you?
In what way? Like
So
what I do every day when I'm on tour, or
exactly, how does a day of Daniel during tour look like?
well, this it's funny because these summer shows are much more. um, easy on the body and the soul than like an actual proper tour. Um, in America, we joke about the weekend tours that a lot of like European bands do. We call that European touring. We joke and say that that's not real touring because going and playing a show on Friday and Saturday and then spending the week in your own bed, with your getting to spend time with your family and, be a normal person during the week. It's a very different experience than, being on tour for 6 or 7 weeks in a row. But when I'm touring this way, I'm actually glad that I'm doing it this way because it is sort of training for what's coming in fall, which is, a real proper North American tour, six weeks or something like this, where, I have the luxury of, I'm going to get up in my hotel room. I'm going to eat a breakfast at the buffet, and then I'm going to go to the club, and then I'm going to set up and relax, and it's okay. Whereas, when you're on tour in America or, even Europe, but you're in a vehicle, you're just like, you're waking up trying to put out fires because maybe the vehicle broke down or maybe somebody got left behind in the last city, or maybe some of your equipment broke and now you have to fix it, but you're in the middle of Texas and they don't have any shops that can get you the equipment that you need to fix your stuff, and it feels like something is on fire at all times and you're just constantly trying to put out every little fire. And it's a very interesting way to live because you realize how much all this other stuff doesn't matter, like the things that kind of plague your mind, like existential dread, or this person gave me a bad review on Facebook. Like, you don't have time to care about that when you've got like a nail through the tire of your vehicle and you've got 1 hour to get it fixed, because if you don't, then you won't make it to the club in time, right? Like that's sort of, it distills life down into the very essence of living, which is just sort of trying to stay alive and not die.
And actually, you're like self-managed, right? So is also when you're then planning like the US tour, the Northern American tour, is it like you planning this, or do you then also take on support? And
so for many years, I was the person who booked my own tours in America.
Okay.
So I would call the clubs or the promoters. I would put together the routing and the budgets and all of that kind of stuff. I would also tour manage, so I was the guy making sure that the bus made it from A to B and B to C. And on this last tour that we did in America in 2009, I guess it did really well because it caught the attention of like actual booking agencies, not just me. And we had a couple of people reach out to us during that tour. They're like, "Hey, your tour's going great. Do you want to sign with us?" And so it was a very rewarding experience because you saw that the result of your hard work was, actually attracting the attention of professional people. And so we ended up choosing an agency called 33 and West, who's been fantastic to us. And thankfully, they did all the booking for this tour coming up. But I will be the tour manager again. So I'll be the guy calling the clubs. Hey, are you ready for us? And then at the end of the night, like counting all the money and doing all those things. Because if I don't keep busy, then I go crazy. And I think this is why I used to drink so much when I was on tour, because I had other people doing these things for me. And so I was just bored. You're just sitting in the backstage. You're like, "Can we go yet?" And they're like, "No, we can't go for 2 or 3 hours because we have to do X, Y, and Z." And you're like, okay. And then, you just start drinking because you got nothing else to do. But what's the saying? Like, idle hands do the devil's work. So I keep busy so that I don't do the devil's work. Right.
All right. Good. Understood. So, but now also thinking about, I mean, I have the pleasure to see you at the VGT and the Amphi. So what myself and also other people can expect, because now we have like, so many great albums, great songs. and now there's like these now 13 singles out there. So how does that fit in? How do you, like, let's say, set up your set list for
Yeah.
for your tour, for gigs, etc.?
I know what it's like to be a fan, right? Like I know what it's like to want to go to the show and hear like the hits. So I do my best to find a balance between like what are you trying to achieve as an artist, which is, promote your new music, um, you know, uh, perform music that you maybe have more of an immediate emotional connection to, because obviously like the songs that I made 20 years ago, they feel more foreign to me than the songs that I made last year, right? So there's a kind of balancing act that you need to do there. But I think that it is very, very important, because it's a big mistake when bands go out with their new records and they're like, okay, here's 12 new songs and then here's one old hit. It's like that's not part of the job of being an entertainer. So I take the job of being an entertainer very, very seriously. I want to make sure that I am giving the crowd a show and giving them the show that they want to see. So I do my best to sort of sneak in some of the new music, and I'm always paying attention, making sure like, oh, did this work? Did this not work? Always willing to adjust my plan, because as we discussed already, like you can prepare, you can try and go into this with as much data as possible. It's like, well, okay, so these are the most popular Spotify songs and these are the most requested songs on Facebook. And then this is, if so, you try to like put it all together into some kind of spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet helps dictate your track list. But when you go out there and you're actually performing the songs, you see in the people's faces whether or not they're enjoying it. And if they're not enjoying it, then song's got to go. So it's always a work in progress, and you always have to be willing to make changes. And I think one of the best examples of this, there's a song from my 2008 album called "The Ones." It's one of the most popular songs of mine ever. One of the most popular songs on Spotify still to this day. Like no matter what, it's just always in that top 5. Always, always, always. And so when my drummer Joey joined the band, he was like, we have got to start playing The Ones. And I'm like, yeah, we did that like 10 years ago and nobody liked it. And he's like, come on, we've got to try it. We've got to try it. It's like, all right, if you want to try it, we'll try it. The song is like 6 minutes long, and it's slow. So of course it bombs. It bombs at every show we play it at. Nobody likes it. And so Joey and I are talking about it. We're like, okay, maybe we'll shorten it. So we try to like actually cut out some of the bits that were too long, too slow, whatever. And we make like this really cool, almost like radio edit of the song. And I think, this radio edit, this might work. Tanks. Nobody cares. Nobody likes it.
All right.
And so, after trying this like 10 times, Joey comes up to me and he's like, ugh, you were right. Nobody likes the song. We got to cut it. I'm like, I told you this. I've known this for 10 years. And it's funny because to this day, people will still be like, will you play The Ones? Will you play The Ones? And it makes me sort of think maybe I should play it. But then I remember what happens every time I do play it. So, I think even people don't really understand, like the audience doesn't really understand whether or not a song works unless they're there. And then they'll be there and be like, oh yeah, I get it. I get why you don't play this song. So it has to be a conversation. It has to be a conversation between you and the audience and your band and everything. You always have to be ready to change and accept that some things work and some things don't.
So you want to say, so the one we won't want to listen to when we...
It never works. It didn't work when it came out. It didn't work, in the subsequent tours, and it didn't work in 2019. I don't know. People just don't seem to like that song live. Just keep streaming it on Spotify. It's fine.
Okay. Great. So maybe one thing. So what does the Gothic scene mean for you?
Um, I mean, it's difficult because I grew up in this scene. This was the place that gave me somewhere to go when I didn't have anywhere else to go. Um, it gave me a career when I didn't have a career. It, you know, it gave me a lot of things in life that I didn't have before. But it's also somewhat frustrating because all underground scenes are very tribalistic, very judgmental. So even though people say, "Oh, we're open-minded. Oh, we don't want to be like those mainstream people." They're all so close-minded. They're so unaccepting of anything that isn't what they expect. But then, they turn around and they still act tribalistic, and you try to do something different artistically or visually, and then they give you a negative reaction, right? I mean, that is the whole reason for the mustache, right? Like I grew the mustache because I knew it would be controversial. And the thing is, I don't like the mustache. I don't like it at all. But the idea is when I'm posting pictures of myself with the mustache, people are saying like, "Oh, I don't like it. I don't want to listen to your music anymore because of the way you look." And the idea is to show people that this is the same kind of behavior and thought patterns that they are trying to get away from in the mainstream world. So I guess as much as I love the scene, I do want to, I don't know, challenge them a little bit, because I think that we need to be forward thinking. We need to be a little bit more open minded. We need to get fresh blood in here. We need younger kids. We can't, I'm almost 40. I'm not going to be able to do this forever. We need a new band full of 20-year-old kids who can drink and do drugs all day and feel good the next day. And I can't do that anymore. So it's important that the scene grows and matures, and I think that it's been difficult over the last, I want to say 5 or 10 years, but I do think that everything happens in cycles. I do think that there will be some kind of revolution or some kind of paradigm shift, and I'm hoping maybe to be some small part of it. We'll see.
Yeah, I guess not only a small part in the end.
Only history will decide. That's exactly the thing. History makes these decisions. Nobody else.
Yeah, maybe in 3 years, everyone wears a mustache in the scene.
So that was the joke, is that like as soon as people start growing the mustache, then I'll shave it.
Exactly. Cool. So talking about locations, and now I mean, you have experience like in Europe and also in the US. So when you think about locations, so which are the locations where you say, hey, this is really where I love to play?
It doesn't matter. I feel like people who really, really genuinely love music, they exist everywhere. And I think this is why music is so powerful, is because it unifies people in a way that I don't think other art forms do. Because it doesn't matter if you're in Germany or if you're in America or Mexico or Canada or Japan, playing in front of people who love your music, it's like there's no cultural barrier, there's no language barrier. It's just you and them and the music. And I think that is really the most powerful aspect of music altogether, because fine art, I love fine art, don't get me wrong, but I think that it's not as immediate as music. I feel like there's something maybe really sort of wired into us, maybe from our days, all around a campfire, beating drums and chanting and singing. There's just something very immediate about the way that music resonates with people, and it just seems to be so much deeper than culture or language or location.
Okay. So, but now also looking at, so how come that you are now living in Austria? So I think your wife is Austrian, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's probably the reason, the short answer, or
yeah. So it's been an interesting journey because I met my wife actually at Wave Gothic Treffen in 2005. And the only reason that I met her was because some Austrians had been at my show in LA when I was opening for Nitzareb. And I didn't meet them. I didn't talk to them at the show or anything like this, but I was just waiting at VGT to get my wristband. And these people came up to me, these Austrians, like, hey, didn't we just see you in LA like a year ago? Yeah. Do you want to come party with all of our friends? And there's this big group of Austrian people hanging out at the VGT, and my future wife was one of them, and we met, and it's a magical VGT experience. And not long after that, I moved to Berlin, and I lived in Berlin for a year. My wife studied there for a while, and then after that, we moved to Austria. I lived in Austria in Salzburg for 6 years. And then my wife got a job in LA. We moved to LA in 2012, lived there for 7 years. Then my wife got a job in Austria, and so now we're here. So the joke is that I don't know if in German there's this concept of the 7-year itch, which means like relationships always die after 7 years. So instead of switching partners, we just switch continents every 7 years.
So is that a recommendation from you for, relationships?
I mean, when I think about it, we have been together for 16 or 17 years. So, I mean, maybe we know a thing or two about how to stick together. But yeah, I just essentially follow her job because I have the ability of doing that. Musician, I can do what I do anywhere in the world. So if she gets a job in Tokyo tomorrow, well, let's go.
Okay. But you just have to think about that in 4 or 5 years, right?
Oh, yes, of course. So now we've been here 3 years, so we've got 4 more years. In 4 years,
exactly,
then we can go to Tokyo. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so actually, I would have some, let's say something like some speed questions for you.
Okay, those are dangerous.
Actually, we yeah, exactly. We are pretty like, let's say, going into the end time or journey of this interview. So there's some speed questions. So
okay.
You can answer short.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, you're the one who's getting interviewed. You can also, elaborate on it or whatsoever, but you can also make it short.
Okay.
Name me your favorite songs.
My favorite songs. That's hard. I'll just say my favorite albums. So, U2, Joshua Tree, 9 Inch Nails, Downward Spiral, Queen, Night at the Opera, Michael Jackson, Bad, and Marilyn Manson, Mechanical Animals.
Thank you. Very good. And what's your favorite Aesthetic Perfection song?
They're like my kids.
You can name 3.
No, they're like my kids. Even if I hate them, I have to love them equally. Okay. Like even if they suck, you have to love them. So all my songs I love equally.
Okay. What's your favorite country?
It's hard because I think when you have spent so much time living in different places that you almost feel like you have no real home, because so much about living in Austria feels like home to me. And but there's so many things that I miss about America. But when I'm in America, there's so many things that I miss about Austria and Europe. So um, I think the most difficult thing about living in all of these different places, and having the luxury of traveling the world and meeting so many different people, is that you see all of these things that you click with in all these different places, but you know that you will never truly feel at home there, and that any place is almost just temporary at all times. So I have no favorite place. I just love, my favorite place is planet Earth.
Perfect. So what's your favorite food or meal? And don't say Gösser.
No, not Goethe. Oof. If I'm gonna
Do you
drink
know when you turn the bottle around that it looks like that it's like 1922?
No, I had no idea.
The SSER or something. It looks like 1922 when you turn around the bottle. And I'm not sure. There's a rumor. I'm not sure if Gösser was established in 1922.
Okay.
But something about that. But the beer has a reputation.
But is this on the bottle or on the can?
No, when you just turn the bottle around and you
Okay,
look
but
through
on the bottle.
glass.
Okay.
No, you just turn the bottle. You look from back where the etiquette is, and then you can read from through the glass the 1922.
Okay. I will see. I will see if we have any Gösser bottles in the cellar. Yeah, I think. Wait, is it what's my favorite beer or what's my favorite drink?
Food and meal.
Oh, food. Ah, yes. Okay. So I think my favorite food is tacos. Very hard to get here. Very hard to get good tacos here. I guess my favorite drink might be a good Grüne Veltliner, or I'm not a big fan of the Märzen, right? So Gösser and Zipfer and all this stuff. I mean, I can drink it, but it's definitely not my favorite. I much prefer like an American IPA, something very bitter and disgusting, but it's what I like. The tacos. Oh, and if you're gonna eat your tacos, you got to have it with like a nice Mexican beer, so like a Negro Modelo or a Leon or some Bohemia. Oh, perfect.
Cool. So okay, what so when also think about what you all do, etc. So what is your greatest fear? And of course you can also lie.
Flying and performing.
Really?
Yeah. I'm terrified of flying and I'm terrified of performing. I'm in the wrong business, man.
So I mean you're traveling back and forth and stuff, right? So you're flying and you're touring and having concerts. So are you really nervous then?
Yes.
So, okay.
Sometimes I lie awake at night thinking about a big show that's half a year away.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
And when you're like on tour for a couple of weeks, is it then getting like better? So are you then feeling like calmer, or is it just always like that you're pumped and nervous? And
I feel like I'm in a constant state of tension and dread when I'm on tour, and but I feel that way when I'm in a plane too, right? So it's like even if I'm flying from Munich to LA, it's like 14 hours. You're just like the whole time like, yeah.
So you can neither enjoy the entertainment program, you cannot enjoy or sleep or something.
Not really, no.
Okay.
I mean, I watch the movies, but I'm still in the back of my head. I'm like,
okay.
Yeah.
Good. And now one question. So and this is actually one of my favorite questions because I'm a little older, So and it's always like so when you look into when you talk to people, so it's always a question, how do you listen to music? There are many people, nowadays you have playlists, you listen to single songs, and I'm frankly spoken still the album guy, so I have like I listen to vinyl and stuff, so I really love albums, and I could never listen to a song separately. So
Mm.
how is it with you?
Oh, I'm I listen to music like the most obnoxious millennial ever. Like I will walk around with like my phone in my pocket, like blasting like my favorite song from Spotify. It sounds terrible. I don't know why. I don't care. I got a record player for Christmas, and I've been enjoying that, right? Like it's not that I don't appreciate the experience of an album, because I do. You know, I remember what it was like to be a kid who would go to the record store and wait in line to buy an album and then get home and read all the lyrics and the booklet and all this kind of stuff. But um I also feel like I have changed somewhat with the times. So as much as I appreciate that, it's like, how often do I really do it? Not that much. I mean, it's like Sunday, right? Like on a Sunday, let's put on a record and listen to the record through the vinyl player. But when I'm sort of like in life, it's just playlists and singles and stuff, either in a Bluetooth speaker or in my car, or just phone in my pocket blasting the most horrible high frequency. It's terrible, but I do it.
Okay. So so do you then listen to your own playlists, or playlists from, that you just find on Spotify somewhere, or
Spotify playlist. I'm way too lazy to create my own playlists.
right?
I own
Okay.
the only playlist that I really curate is my This Is Industrial Pop playlist on Spotify, and
Mhm.
I'm still really bad about that. I should update it every week, but I do it like every 3 months.
Okay. So it's called then, it's at least stability in this playlist.
Yes.
And so any playlist you want to recommend?
I listen to the most like basic ones. So it's like, oh, I want to listen to 80s music, so All Out 80s, or New Wave. This is New Wave. Dark and Gothic. I really like the Dark and Gothic playlist because it's got Bauhaus and Typo Negative. I don't see why Typo Negative is on there, but I love Typo Negative, so it's cool. Uh, it's very weird going from like, uh, Bauhaus to Typo Negative or Susie or something, but whatever. I don't care. It's like I like the songs, and All Out 50s. I love doo-wop music, so American
Ooh,
1950s music. It's great. Love it. Perfect songwriting.
cool,
It's so good.
cool. Great. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So yeah, it was a real pleasure talking to you. So thanks very much for taking the time, and it was just great. And I'm looking forward to seeing you perform on stage at the VGT and the Amphi.
Yes, those are good. Those are going to be good shows. Don't miss it. I've got special costumes for each show.
Oh, okay. Really looking
Yes.
forward to it.
Oh, yes. It's going to be good. Cool. Well, thank you for
So
talking
yeah,
to me.
yeah. So thanks very much.